You're now listening to the Adiel Gorel Show. Each episode, I'll bring you the latest news from my discussions with top health and wellness experts so that you can bring yourself into better health. Today, on the Adiel Gorel Show.
And then what I would see without question, without exception, is that when somebody's intimate relationship was suffering, it would suck everything else into that thing like a vacuum, right? Even if all the other areas were doing really well.
So, when you talk about I know you have a workshop called Vaginal Kung Fu, and you, I've seen in some of your materials, and I've seen it, in other countries, you actually lift weights with your vagina. So clearly the vaginal muscles, the walls, can you talk about those benefits? What happens when they get stronger like that?
Right. So just like any other muscle in the body, our pelvic floor muscles need strengthening. And this has been, the ancient Taoists talked about this 5,000 years ago. They used a jade egg as a strengthening device. Dr. Kegel in 1947 invented the Kegel exercise. It's just that the exercise that most people think of today, they're just told to clench their muscles, their PC muscles, right? Pubococcygeal muscles that stop the flow of urine, except that that's not the device, that's not the exercise he invented. The exercise he invented involved having a device inserted inside the vagina to create resistance and feedback. So just like having a weight training regimen, like you could move your bicep in the air and hope maybe you'll get like some kind of muscle growth, or you actually pick up the right weight and there's enough weight to challenge you, but not too much that you can't lift it. And that's how we build strength, right? And so that's exactly the same with the vagina, and it applies to men too with their PC muscle. So I, took that information from the Taoist practices and integrated all of my holistic work around sexuality and female sexuality and created this course called Vaginal Kung Fu that involves lifting weights using that jade egg. And I take them through a series of physical exercises and emotional and energetic clearing, because to me, healing and growth is always multidimensional. And so it's like if you were to put somebody on a diet to lose weight, but you didn't look at their exercise or the kinds of food that they're eating for the long term, or their emotional reasons, let's say for overeating, it's going to be short-lived as a result. And so my work is always about addressing every angle that we can. And that's why the results are then permanent.
So your workshop called Vaginal Kung Fu, what's the corresponding one for men?
Sexual mastery for men.
Okay. Name is not as sexy, but it's a good name.
No, you're right. It's not. Well, I was going to call it Super Cock.
Okay.
That was kind of that's the subtitle for it. Yeah.
Okay. So, how can people benefit? I listen to you. And again, we strive to give our viewers not only special information, good information, but very accessible and very doable information. How can our viewers benefit from your wisdom, from your services? What's available, to them?
Right. So I have a couple of free offerings, which is I have my podcast called Orgasmic Enlightenment, and I put out nearly weekly episodes of that. And we're on our 3rd season of that. I have a YouTube channel where I have lots of free videos out there. And then for people who want to take things to the next level, I run a whole series of online courses in all things intimate. So as you mentioned, there's Vaginal Kung Fu, Sexual Mastery for Men, Coming Together for Couples, How to Be a Well-Fucked Woman. Right. And then I have a holistic pregnancy and orgasmic birth course as well. And so all of those things are, 8 to 10 week classes held online where people watch a series of videos, and then there's weekly Q&A calls to come back to me and troubleshoot. And so that's where the bulk of the work to take things to the next level happens for me. But my free offerings, like a lot of what I do, I feel like is showing people what they don't know, right? You don't know what you don't know. And so in my podcast, in my videos, I'm really trying to show people what's possible. And so I have something I call the Anami guarantee, which is that all people can. All women can have vaginal orgasms, G-spot orgasms, cervical orgasms, ejaculating orgasms. Every woman has a high libido. Every woman can shoot ping pong balls across the room with her vagina. Every man can learn to have sex for 8 hours at a time and learn how to separate orgasm from ejaculation. All of these things are possible. It's just that people need to know they're possible and then need the right tools to actually take them there. And that's contrary to the dominant paradigm, generally in the Western model is like, there, little girl, don't you worry if you can't do that, right? Very patronizing, everyone gets a participation trophy, and quite frankly, ignorant, right? Like sort of this idea that, oh, if you can't do that, don't worry about it. But actually, you should worry about it because these are things that you can do. You just need to be opened up and shown the way, right? So that's what I see a huge role for me is being that beacon of the great permission giver for people and then showing them how to get there.
So again, it's not a plug. That's not what we are here, but I want people to have the good access. Where do we go? What's the website?
KimAnami.com is where that's my main website, and all of the information about those courses is. And then I have another website called Anami Alchemia, and this is a shop where I personally have created all kinds of different holistic sexual accoutrements, from glass blown couture, Venetian style dildos, and herbal tinctures, and organic herbal body oils, crystal elixirs, all things intimate that help people on their journey, that are complementary, and all natural, organic, high quality products.
So actually, in reading about you and getting ready for this interview, of course, my curiosity was piqued, and I confess I went to your website and I bought the tinctures for men.
Oh.
And they're on their way to me. I'm very curious to use them. It'll be fun. I think I use 1 or 2 of them in my daily shakes anyway, but I really want to see what those are going to be like. And I think because of the tincture format, they're going to be more absorbable. So, I actually have a question. Again, I didn't take much. I just took, the Mantak Chia and this, the Charles Muir. We learn about the G-spot. We go to the G-spot. So now, once again, there's a big difference between the accessibility of the female G-spot and the male G-spot. And so the female G-spot seems like a lot of benefit for no work. It's right there. It's right there, and it gives wonderful, great. But the male, there's got to be a little work, and it kind of goes to what you said before about maybe the prostate massage. So the work for a woman or for a partner in general to get to the male G-spot, I assume you'd say that it's worth it, right? It's worth to know, it's worth to do.
Definitely, but I would sort of back up a minute there and say that I think that they're both equally accessible, right? They both involve going internal penetration. They're both located about 2 inches inwardly. They need the same kind of motion. I'd say that the barrier is more psychological, right? Because for men, the barrier is, am I gay? Is this I'm being stimulated in the ass? What does that mean about me? I don't think there's really, I think that the physical process is very much the same, because just because you might think you have easier access to a woman's G-spot, she will not. Many women don't experience pleasure there. They're quite numb in the vagina. It involves a lot of really letting go and opening and surrendering. And so, the pathway to these orgasms, I'd say, is equally challenging for both men and women. And for men, it is very different in that the man is then being penetrated that way. But, that is the male G-spot. I always laugh and joke that God put the G-spot up the ass for men, because they'd have to deal with these additional energetic, psychological barriers, especially in our culture, right? Around whatever hangups people might have around homosexuality or their own questions about their own sexuality, that kind of stuff. So, it's just an additional thing. But to me, that is the beauty of deep sexual transformation, is that when we face these taboos or fears that we have and we bust through them, that's where the real gold is on the other side. So the gold is really up your ass, Adiel.
Well, I actually thought about it slightly differently. I thought that lack of accessibility was also in the partner's mind, because you have to go into a place that is usually not considered as clean and inviting as the vagina. The rectum is so, there is also, yes, I understand, and I agree 100% with everything you said. The mind shift for the male is usually, the penetrator, now he gets penetrated, very important work. But for the female partner too, wouldn't it be a little bit more, oh, gee, I have to go in there, that kind of a thing?
It could be. Yeah, I see what you're saying there. But I suppose ultimately, when you're really, really open to somebody, I feel like it's all systems go, right? You're just open to that deep exploration wherever it takes you. And there's always things you can do to prepare, like enemas and being clean and conscious of these things. But yeah, I think that part of the whole thing with anal play, whether it's on a man or a woman, is that it is the symbolism. This is your shit. This is the area where the sun don't shine, right? Where there's all kinds of, when we say that people are tight asses, we think of them as being really tightly wound, right? Like they have a stick up their butt. Well, maybe they need a stick up their butt, right? They need something in there to stimulate them and penetrate them and open them up and loosen them up a little bit. So I believe that anal play, whether it's on the man or the woman, is very therapeutic and cathartic. I think it's a tool to use now and then, perhaps not constantly. I don't think the ass was really built for constant penetration, but occasionally as that extra boost or, opening device.
So, clearly sexual energy, sexual health in the mind, in the body is very central to our well-being, but it doesn't live in a vacuum. So now can you tie it to the totality, diet, movement, living tips and style, how it all rounds up into both making sex better and sex making those better?
Right. Well, look, as a holistic teacher, I'm all about, personally, I eat 100% organic food, whole foods. I have for decades. I don't ever eat any GMO food. I'm into herbal medicine. I don't ever take pharmaceuticals. So I'm all about clean body. I'm very fit and healthy. I exercise nearly daily. So I believe that all of those things keep us functioning optimally. Our hormones and neurotransmitters are optimal, which helps to feed healthy sex hormones. And then the other side of that is, yes, if we're very sexually vital, that vitality transmits into everything else in our lives. And I often, way back early on in my career, I worked as combination of a life coach, intimacy coach, and business coach. And people would come in to see me. And there's this assessment tool in life coaching that you can do, which is, they call it the circle or the wheel of life, right? And you kind of divide someone's life up into a pie. There's their health and their finances and their work and their home environment, their partner, their children, their body, all of these things. And then what I would see, without question, without exception, is that when somebody's intimate relationship was suffering, it would suck everything else into that thing like a vacuum, right? Even if all the other areas were doing really well. And then conversely, if their intimate life was doing really well, it would feed everything else. And that's where I, kind of evolved into really focusing on this, because to me, it was the Rosetta Stone, is that when people are really in touch with that energy, it is infused in this ultra up-leveling way into everything that they do.
So I go back to what you talked about in the beginning. You gave a very beautiful analogy about men and women. You said men are like fire, they burn quickly and they extinguish quickly, and the women are more like water. They take time to heat up, but then they stay hot or warm. And so also, I don't want to generalize, and you'll be able to say it much better than me, but it seems like the male is generally built for visual stimulation and other stimulation. It's all very quick. But with a woman, many women say, for me, it has to go through the heart. So is that part of the water that heats up, that some emotion or feeling needs to be there? How is it's like, is there a difference? There is a difference, but how do you see it between the sexes?
If there is a difference, I think it's much more subtle than people are conditioned to believe, right? We're conditioned with this idea that men spread the seed, men are naturally more sexual or promiscuous, and women tend the seed. They're not so much that way, right? And I think that the truth is women are more sexual than they've been conditioned to be, and men are more emotional than they've been conditioned to be, right? Rather than us thinking that that is the natural way of things, because physiologically speaking, do you know what 99.9% of male sperm do? I'm asking you if you know this.
I think it dies out. It swims and then it goes away because it doesn't hit that egg.
Well, 99.9% of male sperm are actually killer kamikaze sperm. Their job is to go inside, find other sperm, and kill them, right? Because they're essentially expecting to find other sperm inside.
I see. That's interesting.
And even the shape of the male penis, with that scooping, with the head of the cock, goes in and scoops out other semen and then ejaculates far up to try to best these other semen. So you have this survival of the fittest environment going on inside of the woman, which tells us that historically speaking, the women were built and expecting to have multiple partners, right? And to select the best specimen for her baby. So I'm not using that as an argument for polyamory per se, because I believe in more conscious monogamy, but only to say that this idea that somehow women aren't built for this and men are really built for this, actually women are built even more so to be multi-partner, multi-orgasmic, but men are, the typical man is good for one round and he's kaput. So all of this to say that I think that the conditioning is more social, that men are somehow more sexual and women are more emotional. I think they are equally both parts.
It actually makes a lot of sense from a historical perspective, because while there is never any doubt who the mother is, no doubt, you know who the mother is, you can just, here's the mother. Well, until we had DNA testing, which is only recently, there could be serious doubts as to who the father might be. So
look, in a tribal environment, it didn't matter, right? Because everyone was raising each other's children. It may not have mattered until we became more nuclear family-esque at whatever stages of evolution. And then, paternity means a lot more. But prior to that, who cares, right? They're everybody's kids anyway.
So I have a question regarding women as they transition into menopause. So there is always this question, should you take hormones? And of course, I heard what you said about hormones, but I want to hear what you say. What do women, what should they be doing as they transition into the perimenopause, menopause stage of their lives? Is there anything extra that they can do?
keep having amazing sex. I mean, I see menopause not as some kind of mandatory sentence for women where the human body is so faulty that we need to be supplementing it with fake hormones. Like, I honestly refer to menopausal women as the cash cow of Western medicine, because they're primed, right? There's all this conditioning and programming that they've lost their vitality. They're at their, it's all downhill from here, right? And who wants this person at this stage of their life? All this programming for women that's totally different for men, right? Older men are more distinguished and they have this gravitas, but older women are more disposable. That's the messaging, in most media, I would say. In North America, not in Europe. I'd say it's different in Europe. But look, in my decades of work with women, if a woman is really embodied in her sexuality, there is zero difference when she makes that transition from simply stopping her menses. There is no hot flashes or mood swings or weight gain or whatever else that they tell people is going to happen to them. That doesn't happen when women are sexually fulfilled. And so it's more like if a woman is out of balance in all of these areas, then that will be exacerbated by that transition of menopause. But for women who are otherwise sexually vital, there will be not a single blip on the radar for them.
So it occurs to me that in some way, just from a certain way of looking at it, a woman who is fully in her sexuality, as you say, who reaches the menses stop, could look at it as a benefit. She says, well, A, I don't have to worry about getting pregnant, and B, I don't have this mess every month. So yet I'm the same. So that sounds like a plus, not a minus.
Well, in other cultures, not ours, they look at the time of menopause as a spiritual portal for women, because now all of the energy that was used to facilitate holding space, to make a baby, to coat the womb is now available for them for spiritual ascension. And so that role has, like I said, it's been really denigrated in our modern culture, but historically it wasn't. Those women then sort of transformed more into the medicine woman, right? Because she was now able to use all of that energy to channel other spheres of consciousness and dimensions. So that's the viewpoint that I try to educate and reframe for women so that they don't opt into the version that's offered to them via our Western culture.
That's a beautiful, beautiful way of looking at it. And there is the equivalent for men. You did say, well, supposedly, the older man is more distinguished and maybe he's more powerful and more maybe wealthier, all of that stuff but still, there is all the talk about, the older man, as we said before, prostate, there's all kinds of drugs and should he take hormones or not? So they do have a similar issue. It doesn't concentrate in a single decade of life, but what do you think about all of that?
Same answer is that I don't think that men ever need to take Viagra or testosterone supplements. I think you can generate testosterone naturally through diet, through physicality. I don't believe that, again, if a man is really in touch with his sexuality and doing these kinds of up-leveling practices, he'll have rock hard, high performance erections well into his 70s, if not beyond, right? And again, I see that over and over in my work where I have these legendary 75-year-old men who are still like fully, having multiple tantric hours of sex and no kind of, Viagra additives whatsoever. So it's, again, we're just prescribed these sorts of ailments through Western medicine and buying into the notion that the human body does not function well without a multitude of additional pharmaceutical support systems. And I don't buy into that, and I don't teach that.
So, clearly, I know that I have already gone to your website. I know that our viewers, I hope they do, because I think there's a lot of good information there. I certainly, being a man, I would love, and I think I will, take your male course, the 8-week course. I think it's very good. But just in general, if you give general words of wisdom or advice to our viewers just now, what to do in life, how to move forward in that journey now.
I would say start educating yourself about what's possible. Like I said, I have some wonderful, free, really deep resources out there, my podcast, my YouTube channel, where people have often told me that they've changed their sex lives just from listening to the podcast, just from watching YouTube videos. So there's lots of information out there. And like I say, that idea that what I say is the guarantee is everyone can do these things. So if somebody is thinking, well, they haven't had an orgasm before, or they think that they're just always just one of those people who has a low libido, right? It's just who they are. I'm saying, no, it's not. You can have all of these things as well. And here's how. And so, the word, it's just educating yourself about what's really out there. And then I show people how to get there. But the starting place is just believing it's possible. And that's what all of my podcasts and videos do, is like, here's what everyone can do. You can too.
Yeah, that is quite a good thing. And when I think about it, just from the logical standpoint, it's like if you told me, or if someone told me, most people can't eat, I would say, well, no, I think most people can eat. Or you say most people can't pee. I said, well, all those functions. So why is this a different function? If we can eat, if we can this, if we can sleep, if we can go to the bathroom, why can't we have, why is it that this realm is different?
I fully agree with you. And I'm always shocked when I see people, and I honestly see this, say fighting for the right not to orgasm. Like they'll be angry with me for telling people that they can orgasm, that everyone can. There's this sort of woke apology type movement out there these days, as though I'm being insulting towards people who somehow yet may not have stumbled upon their own orgasm by saying that everyone can, which is just total ludicrousness to me. But it's just that's applied to so many different areas in the world right now.
Well, just going a little bit higher to the 30,000 foot view, to me at least, and it's not based on anything, it always seemed like that moment, the moment of orgasm, there's a certain door that open up, even spiritually. And that's a moment that gets you closer to whatever name you want to put in here. You want to put God, you want to put creation, want to put the universe, you put your word. But something happens in that. And it seemed like that's an opportunity right there to get closer to something a lot deeper that has to do with why we are here, what are we doing here, what's the purpose? What do you think about that?
Oh, I fully agree. That is really the heart of my work, is the idea, the French term for orgasm, le petit mort, the little death and rebirth. That it's like, it helps us to purge and let go of pieces of our ego, of ourself that we no longer need, and really emerge as a more reborn, authentic version of ourselves. That is really the heart and soul of my work. And so I fully agree that that is actually the purpose of sex and the essence of sex, metaphysically, of this great recalibration of the self and being in touch with that divine presence and energy, as you say, God, the energy of the universe, whatever somebody wants to call it, our higher self. But we have access to that through conscious, deep sexual experiences. I don't think we get there in more casual, superficial experiences of sex. I think this is really the domain of more what I call gourmet sex, distinguishing it from junk food sex. And again, that's not a judgment. It's more of is this experience enlightening me and making me into a better person, or riddling someone with guilt and a blood sugar plummet, so to speak?
Le petit mort, I like that. A little death. That's a beautiful way to look at it. Basically, you're giving up on something and you're starting something new just at that moment. That is a very, very beautiful name.
Yeah, well, the French came up with that.
Right. Well, Kim, I really want to thank you for taking the time to be here with us. I certainly learned a lot, and I would like to learn more. I'm very thankful, and your presence, of course, is a delight. And thank you for being here with us.
It's my pleasure. It's wonderful to chat with you. And I really enjoy that you have such a breadth of knowledge and experience already in this area.
Oh, I want to learn much more. Thank you so much, Kim.
You're welcome. My pleasure.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you for joining me today for the second part of our amazing interview. If you didn't catch part 1, don't miss out. The link is in the description below for you. And be sure to click the subscribe button for more videos.